if you're at the Leeds Borough game last night, you may have seen on the East Stand, projected there, we were here before you and will still be here after you've gone. It is a protest listing the many reasons why the Time to Go Massimo campaign want him gone, including Sam Byram, the Sick Note 6, Hockaday, a word the word that will always be synonymous, of course, with the full mayhem of Massimo. Joining us now from the Time to Go Massimo campaign is Tom Banks. Tom, good afternoon.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, we're good, thanks, Tom. I mean, as I said, it was very interesting. I was reading about the stuff you projected on the East Stand last night. You got it checked legally. You spoke to the council. You covered all the bases, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we had to. You know, look, we were behind the poster that went up right outside the East Stand at the back end of last week, and the club basically came down really heavily on the group that on the ad agency that put the board up. So we wanted to just make sure that we'd kind of covered all the bases because we really wanted that to be projecting for the whole game. And I think it looked pretty good. You know, we didn't expect it to look as good as it did. You know, I think it got the message across, certainly. You know, and if he was frustrated by the poster, then this was obviously a little bit bigger than that.
The trouble with all this is, I mean, we all think you've got a very good point, but the thing is, this man is quite vindictive, isn't he? And he has said, you know, that he's going to make the fans suffer.
Well, what he did, he stepped back from he gave an interview to an Italian newspaper and said he'd put the infamous pie tax in as a punishment for fans who chanted for him to sell the club. But he's backtracked on that subsequently, Tom. He said that's not the case, but it is slightly worrying that, are you slightly concerned you could just be antagonising him and making it less likely he sells?
You know, I think this is the funny thing about that story is, you know, whether it was a joke or not, I think for us, I think one of the slides put it really well was, you know, so often, I mean, there was a game of football last night, but no one's talking about it because, you know, not only was our protest on there, but there's something's come out about Sky, you know, and the Football League and the deal with that. So often, actually, with our club now, we're not talking about, you know, I mean, the game was 0-0 to be fair, so I mean, if it was 6-5, it might have been different. But, you know, after every game, it never seems to be talking about the football. I think it's happened systematically for the last couple of years now, and it's getting to the point where, you know, people aren't really talking about what's going on the pitch. You know, it's the court cases, all the stuff off the pitch. It's just, fans are tired of it, you know. I think it's time to, something's got to be done, you know, so.
I was saying today to the producer, you know, that Leeds is such a great, it's a bit like Newcastle, but, you know, it's a one-club town, it's got a massive fan base, it's got a great history. It's absolutely right for, you know, one of these Chinese consortiums to come in and get proper people, not, you know, I'm not saying he's not a proper person, but you know what I'm saying, you know, people who will run the club in a way that the fans would appreciate and spend the right amount of money and get Leeds back to where they really should be.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, like you say, it's a one-club city, you know, and it's got all the ingredients to be a successful, profitable business for someone that sees it from that angle. You know, the fan base travel week in, week out across the country, you know, even though the team are, you know, quite often, not in the last couple of years, not particularly competitive, but they're still going there, you know, thousands per game. It's got all the ingredients of a really successful club. I mean, last night showed it. You know, Steve Gibson up at Borough's done a brilliant job. You know, he's not got the wealth of a sheikh or a, you know, Chinese consortium, but he runs the club properly. You know, he runs it in a sensible way, and the fans respect that, and they've got a brilliant thing going up there. And, you know, if they get promoted this year, good luck to them. But, yeah, I think you're totally right. I think, you know, the ingredients are there for it to be a success. It just needs someone that can run it properly.
You're clearly angry with Cellino, obviously, but are you annoyed with the league that they allowing him to buy the club? They do have sort of checks and balances in place, but, you know, he came into the club with a couple of legal actions hanging over his head, and it has been a disaster generally, hasn't it, his whole time there?
Yeah, I mean, when we were trying to think of content to go on the slides, there was stuff we were having to get rid of, you know, because we couldn't fit it all on. You know, there's not much that's, you know, particularly positive. I think you're right. I think the league needs to have a look and see at the kind of owners and directors tests or whatever it's called. It used to be fit and proper persons, and they changed it, but there's got to be something looked at with that, you know, because, I mean, we're not the only ones that have seen, you know, we're not saying that we're the only club in the country that's got an owner that we don't agree with. You know, it's up and down. Look at Charlton, and obviously having a lot of problems at the moment. Blackpool is just like a, you know, succession of, you know, you see, that's never ending, that. So, yeah, you know, these owners keep getting control of these clubs, and, you know, it is a handful of, you know, most of the owners in the Football League and in Premiership do a pretty good job. You know, people have sort of little niggles at them and stuff, but yeah, I think you're right. I think, you know, the Football League probably need to take a step back, you know, following the last few, you know, especially with the Charlton and us, and think, right, you know, what are we doing wrong here? Because, you know, something's got to change, you know, if these people keep getting, you know, in charge of these football clubs. And at the end of the day, you know, the football clubs are owned by the fans, essentially. You know, owners will come and go, but it's the fans that are the ones that seem to suffer. You know, it's disappointing.
Okay, Tom, we wish you well with the campaign. Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem. Cheers for that.
There we are. That's Tom Banks there from the Time to Go Massimo campaign. I'm sure they've got a lot more planned going forward.